أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العظيم. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقولوا للناس حسنا صدق الله العظيم. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما وعملا. First and foremost, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All praise is firstly and foremost due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who gives us tawfiq in this month of Ramadan that we can approach Him. And then He gave a further tawfiq to those people who are in Itikaaf to completely seclude themselves from society, seclude themselves from all the distractions and connect themselves with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're grateful for this beautiful gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq that we can appreciate this and make the most of this. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the month of Ramadan does not pass except our major and our minor sins are forgiven. Secondly, I would thank the organizers for inviting me here. Not because I have anything to give you, I'm just going to quote the words of Allah and His Messenger, inshallah ta'ala, but because I have a burden upon my shoulder as a talib al-ilm and a seeker of knowledge to convey this knowledge to all others. So this is a burden upon every student, and to give a student the tawfiq and to give the student a chance and the opportunity to maybe convey some of this, it removes some of the burden. Otherwise, the first people, as we know, who are going to be questioned of judgment are the ulama. Even though I'm not from the ulama, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does question me, then I can say that I did my best and I convey that burden. So please pray for me first and foremost, especially those who are making i'tikaf. The topic I was given is a very broad topic in regards to relationships. As you know, relationships, you have every kind of relationship, so it's a very, very broad topic. And in actual fact, to do justice to this topic, not because of my knowledge, but because of the fact that this topic is so huge, you would have to have a series of lectures. You would have to have a series of lectures. One aspect of it will just be relationship with your parents. One aspect of it will just be relationship with your teachers. One aspect will be relationship with those who are below you, for example, your children, your students, and people who are younger than you. And there's other categories like your spouses, people who are equal to you, your friends, members of a society, members of your workforce, employers, employees. This is such a huge topic to cover relationships, but I'll do my best. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me the tawfiq. Maybe I can plant some of the seeds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it grow into whatever benefit would have had I spoken at length about this. So looking at relationships first and foremost, in order to understand relationships and what we're obliged to do in relationships, we have to recognize a standard. And the standard that we have been given is the standard from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. This is the only objective standard. So for those who don't know what subjective means that it's got no interference to do with people's opinions. If we start to go by subjective means, if we say the standard is this, society dictates this, then we're bound to make mistakes as we see in society. So the only way we can escape mistakes and the only way we can understand how to fully fulfill our duties and obligations, we have to learn what the standard is. And that standard is the standard that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set and the standard that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has passed on and given the authority to His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to dictate. And you find this numerous times in the Quran, Ati'u Allah wa Ati'u Rasul, and people know this without even going into any detail about this. Obey Allah and obey His Messenger. This is one of the most clearest of things in our deen. And it's one of the primary sources which no one disputes about at all. There might be some sources about it with some scholars, for example, qiyas, istihsan. These other sources that scholars disagree about, but the general masses of the Ummah of Rasulullah have never ever disagreed about the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the primary and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they are the primary sources of the religion. It's just in a modern era we see certain people who have become Quran only, the Quranites, and people who reject the Sunnah of Rasulullah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them hidayah, or may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to be free of these people. If you look at the categories of people we have, when I just generally glance at types of relationships, what I realized is that you have three broad categories of relationships. You either have people above you or people who you see as above you. or you are people equal to you, or people you see as being equal to you, or you people below you, or people you see as being below you. I said see as being below you because sometimes it could be subjective who is below you and who is above you. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq that we can be humble to Him. Let's look at generally who comes under these categories. So people above you, first and foremost, your parents. Then, if not more, I would say probably more, your teachers. Because your parents are those individuals through whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you life in this world. And this world is finite. It's finite, it will come to an end. When it comes to an end, then that ni'mah and that blessing will come to an end with it. Both the ulama and the teachers are those people who are going to give you life in the akhirah. So especially those people who are studying here, take this message, we take nothing else from this lecture, that your teachers, the ulama, deserve the most respect that you can give anyone in your lives, even more than your parents, for the simple fact that they're going to give you life in the akhirah, and the akhirah, as we know, is infinite and is never ending. So that blessing you attain from the direction and the irshad of the ulama and your teachers especially, that is going to continue on not just to the end of this life, but it's going to continue on into the akhirah. And first and foremost from our teachers is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam himself. He is our teacher as well. You have to remember this. He is al-muallim al-akbar, the greatest muallim, greatest of teachers. Who taught the Sahaba, who in turn taught the Tabi'un, who in turn taught the Taba'a Tabi'un, etc., all the way to this generation. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This is one of the reasons why the ulama have said that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam maqam constantly increases. They gave a few reasons for this. One of those reasons, as everyone knows, is when we send salawat upon Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his maqam increases and increases and increases. One of the other reasons the ulama have given is knowledge. The Rasulullah himself said that one of the things that continues after the demise of a person is useful knowledge. And who does all knowledge sprout from? Who is the source of all knowledge that we know in deen? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Even as I am speaking, I say any good thing from my mouth, this reward goes to Rasulullah. His maqam is increasing just by that. Now imagine how many people are speaking on behalf of Rasulullah, how many people are conveying the knowledge of Rasulullah, how many people are utilizing it and passing that on. So this is the reason why the greatest of teachers, Rasulullah, is through Rasulullah that we have adab for our teachers, in fact. Because Rasulullah said that himself, al-ulama'u warathatul anbiya. The ulama, the bearers of knowledge, the scholars, are the inheritors of the prophets. And the prophets don't leave behind gold and silver. They don't leave behind property, they leave behind knowledge. And whomsoever takes knowledge, he takes a hadhun wafir. He takes the best part. He takes a huge part. He takes something he can hold on to. So it's very, very important for us to recognize that. And inshallah ta'ala, I want to go into detail about this as we go through it. So the main people who are above us are our parents, our teachers, maybe leaders of society, maybe leaders, our imams in the mosques, employers who we see as above us. Then we have people who are below us as well. First and foremost, we have our children. We have students. If a person is a leader, he has his subjects, the people who he dictates to, or the people who follow his commands and who follow his lead. And this includes all types of people, including celebrities as well. And then you have, for example, employees as well. So these are people who are like on a lower ground. These are people who are, the leaders are on a higher ground, but the subjects are on a lower ground. Then you have people who are equal to you or people who you see as being equal. So example, your spouses, your wives, your husbands, siblings, brothers, sisters, relatives, all these people are people you see equal to us. So in general, what I wanted to say is that generally speaking, what I realized is that if you look at types of people or these relationships that you have with people, you will have three broad types of relationships. Either you look up to people, or you look down to people, or you look level with people. And if I wanted to summarize the whole of my speech, I would just say that if you look up to people, then what it means is that you have to revere those people. They deserve your reverence. If you look down at people, they deserve your compassion. And if you look level at people, they deserve mutual respect. Okay, that's the summary of everything. And that is a summary of the words of Rasulullah. If you look up to people, is reverence. They deserve reverence. We don't say we have compassion for our elders. We have reverence for our elders. We have compassion for our youngers. And we have mutual respect for people who are on level ground with us. So let's now speak about those categories of people. If I don't get a chance to speak about all of these categories, I want to at least concentrate on the family unit. Our parents, our wives, our children, and something about teachers as well. That's very important as well, inshallah ta'ala. If you look at the Quran is a primary source. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this as our legislation. And this as the primary source that we can derive commandments from. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا, that worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not associate any partner with Him, anything with Him. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about the most important thing, because we all know as a fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive all types of sins, but He will never forgive shirk. So He always, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives commandments, the most important commandments He gives is worshipping Him and not associating partners with Him. But look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned immediately after that. He could have mentioned anything after that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have mentioned the salah, the prayer, that worship me and pray to me, give zakah. He could have mentioned make hajj, but He didn't mention that. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention in this verse? وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has enjoined upon you that you be good to your parents. So the first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after worship of Him, He's enjoined is being good to the parents. Why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has selected this order? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate source of ni'mah, ultimate source of blessing. But what's the ultimate source of blessing outwardly in the dunya, in our lives? It's our parents. They brought us into this dunya with the tawfiq Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after mentioning Himself as the mun'im, the one who bestows, the one who gives, the mun'im haqiqi, the one who is the haqiqi, the literal giver, the one who bestows, and He's the one who's the ultimate and the prime giver. He mentions the mun'im majazi, the outward and the giver, in the sense that outward we see them. Because the parents, they raise us, they feed us. We were born into this world in a state that we could not do anything at all. And it's our parents that gave us life, and they raised us in that. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned the hadith, which is even more clear, لا يجزي ولد والدا إلا أن يجده مملوكا فيشتريه ويعتقه. Rasulullah mentioned the hadith that a child can never ever fulfill the duty of the parent. The child can never ever fulfill and repay the parent. The child can never ever repay the parent, except in one case. And let's see if anyone can fulfill that case. Then we can say that, our parents don't deserve our adoration, our khidmah. Except in one case, that the person finds his parents as slaves. He purchases them and he frees them. Okay. Nowadays we don't have slavery. But even if you look back in history, very, very few times in history such a thing would have happened. That a person finds his parents enslaved, he purchases them, and then he grants them freedom. Because he returned the thing that his parents gave him. Because his parents gave birth to him and gave him freedom in this life. Now by purchasing them, giving them freedom, he returned that favor. This is the only way you can even come close to repaying your parents. That's how important it is. Even to the extent that Rasulullah mentions that even if a person's parents are disbelievers, he still has to be obedient to his parents. Disobedient, even his parents are disbelievers. Disbelievers means that they disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they commit the ultimate disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still wants us to be obedient to Him, be obedient to them, the parents. So they are disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of all, the greatest one, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still wants us to be obedient to them. This is the maqam of parents. Rasulullah mentioned in the hadith that the happiness, the rida al-walidi, ridallahi fi ridal walidi, that the pleasure, happiness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in the happiness of the parent. And sakhatullahi fi sakhatil walid. And the displeasure and the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in the displeasure and the anger of the parents. This is how important it is for us to be obedient to our parents. So those of us here, there's many, many young people here. And in fact, all of us here have parents. Okay, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if they passed away, grant mercy in the hereafter. If they're living, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq that we can act upon this. That Allah and His Messenger have dictated and have enjoined upon us to be good to our parents. A man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A man came to the Prophet sallallahu with a Shaykh, an old man with him. Rasulullah said that, who is this man with you? He said, this is my father. Rasulullah then gave him golden advice. The advice of Rasulullah, remember Rasulullah, he's the best advisor that you can get. He's the best counselor. He knows the situation of everyone. This is why certain times you see in hadith, especially those people who read hadith and study, they'll see certain times that people have asked the Messenger the same question. He didn't give the same answer. He gave different answers. And this is something that we should learn, especially people who are leaders and preachers and imams and people who are elders and people come to them for advice. That we shouldn't be, we're not audio tapes. We're not audio tapes in the sense that when someone asks a question, automatically we just play that same response again. We should be, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. If you give the same response, we're giving knowledge, but it's not wisdom. A person famously said that knowledge is to know that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not to put in a fruit salad. Okay. So understand from the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is to know something. Wisdom is really to put in its rightful place. So Rasulullah certain times he gave different response to the same question. Some people asked what's the best of action. Rasulullah sometimes said the prayer. Sometimes he said the birrul walidain, being good to the parents. Sometimes he said the hajj. Sometimes he said jihad. All these different responses for different types of people. So what we realize from this, Rasulullah is the best of counselors. You cannot beat Rasulullah in getting advice. So if people won't advise, then turn to Rasulullah and learn from him. What did Rasulullah say to the man when he said that this person is my father? He said, فَلَا تَمْشِ أَمَامَهُ وَلَا تَجْلِسْ قَبْلَهُ. Do not walk ahead of him. Don't sit down before him. These are simple things that if you adopt these in our lives, we'll realize how much a bond develops between ourselves and our parents. Don't walk ahead of them. That's one of the signs of respect. That we will walk behind people who are elder than us and people who are our teachers and our parents. وَلَا تَجْلِسْ قَبْلَهُ. And don't sit down before him. Okay. This is a sign of other people who see you standing and then your parents sit down and then you sit down, they'll know automatically this person has got respect for his parents. وَلَا تَدْعُوا بِاسْمِهِ. And do not call him or call them by the names. So one of the adabs we know from our culture, alhamdulillah, is that we don't call our parents by the names. This is one of the beautiful aspects of our culture. We have positives of culture, we'll have negatives as well. We have to be balanced about that. But one of the positives is that we never, even elders, we don't even call them by the names. This is one of the aspects of adab. وَلَا تَسْتَسِبْ لَهُ. And do not cause them to be angry and do not cause them to curse you or speak badly to you. Don't cause them to do that. If you know your parents are going to respond negatively to something, then you should avoid saying that. Even if you think it's the right thing. If you think it's the right thing, but you think that your parents are going to respond negatively to that, don't say that. Or if you can put in better words, then put in better words. Speak in the best way possible. وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that speak goodly to people, speak beautifully to people. Imagine how we should be speaking to our parents. So this is words of advice for myself as well, because in this society, especially, everyone finds it difficult. We have to admit that sometimes we're in a situation where we find it's difficult. We have to make that effort. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Actions are according to intentions. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we slip in some of this adab, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for that as well. So this is just a few words in respect to parents. Okay. So as I said to you that if we were to go into detail about the full details of each category of people, we wouldn't be able to fully do justice to all of them, and we wouldn't even be able to cover the basics. So let's move on to the next category. I mentioned the importance of teachers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, teachers and ulama. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Are those who have knowledge and those that don't have knowledge equal? Are those who have knowledge and those that don't have knowledge equal? This is not a question to be answered. This is what we call in English a rhetorical question. In Arabic we call it istifham inkari. A rhetorical question, what it asserts is the negative. That the person who has knowledge and the person who doesn't have knowledge, they're not equal. It's clear. And usually this kind of language is used when it's obvious. We use the rhetorical question where we think something is obvious. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said this as a rhetorical question because it's obvious. Those who have knowledge and those that don't have knowledge are not on equal platform. And they can never ever be close to being on equal platform. Those who have knowledge, they have been bestowed a favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that nothing else can make up for that. No wealth of the world can make up for that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes this by asking a rhetorical question. This is part of balagha and eloquence of the Quran. So those people who study the Arabic language, one of the sciences of lugha and Arabic language is balagha, eloquence, how to speak eloquently. And we have the same thing in English as well, that certain times if you say certain things in a certain way, it will be more effective. So we have the same thing in Arabic as well. Rasulullah said, as I mentioned before, al-ulama'u warathatul anbiya. The ulama are the inheritors of the prophets. And they don't just inherit the knowledge of the prophets, they inherit the adab and they inherit the rank and the prestige of the prophets as well. Because the same way we respect prophets, ulama demand our respect in the same manner as well. Rasulullah mentioned the hadith, فَضْلُ الْعَالِمِ عَلَى الْعَابِدِ كَفَضْلِي أَنَا عَلَى أَدْنَاكُمْ. That the honor and the merit and the virtue of a knowledgeable person over the one who worships. He gave the example of one who worships, the one who worships night and day. He didn't even just say a normal person. He said the virtue and the merit of the scholar and the worshipper. The person who worships, he doesn't miss prayer. He even worships in the night. He keeps the fast in the day. It's like my virtue and my merit and my rank as compared to the least of you. Rasulullah compared the scholar with the common worshipper with himself amongst the least of them, meaning the Sahaba. Least of them are the Sahaba here. So Rasulullah gave the same kind of rank to the scholars as he gave to himself. So Rasulullah is teaching us a very important thing here. Because the scholars are fulfilling the obligation that Rasulullah was tasked with. What obligation was Rasulullah tasked with? What was the task and duty of Rasulullah? To propagate the deen. To propagate the deen. What do the ulama do? They propagate the deen. So they help and they assist the Rasulullah in his task. That's why they earn our adoration and our respect. So the ulama are very, very important. Now, very, very commonly you see and you hear on the tongues of people that they malign the ulama just generally. They say the ulama are like this. Okay, the Maulvis are like this. They have langar and they have halwa and that's it. They don't practically carry out the example. It's true that there are certain people, but we should never ever generalize. The ulama have even said that to say Arabs are like this is wrong as well. Because as soon as you say an Arab is like this, Rasulullah was an Arab, was he not? So we have to be very, very careful of this kind of language. So as soon as we speak about ulama, we can say some ulama or a few ulama are like this, they ought not to be like that. Okay, that is correct. That's fine to do that, and it's fine to put people in their places as well. Because people deserve to be put in their place. If there's no pressure on people, they're not going to live up to their duty. So the ulama are only going to stand up to their duty when there's pressure from people. And it should be a proper pressure in the respect that the ulama should be delivering knowledge to the people. It's not a pressure in terms that they should become subjugated by the people like you have commonly here. So the ulama deserve our highest respect, especially our teachers. So the teachers come under the ulama. One of the most famous poets of the latter ages, who just passed away in the last century, is a great scholar. He's a great poet of Egypt, Ahmad Shawqi. Some people might have heard of him, Ahmad Shawqi. The Egyptians call him Amirul Shu'ara, the leader of the poets. He says beautifully in one of his lines of poetry, قُمْ لِلْمُعَلِّمِ وَفِّهْ تَبْجِيلًا كَادَ الْمُعَلِّمُ أَنْ يَكُونَ رَسُولًا. That stand for the muallim, the teacher, and give him his rightful duty. Give him fulfill the complete duty to him. Stand for the teacher and fulfill his duty. It's almost that the teacher is about to be a messenger. The teacher is so close to being the rank of a messenger that we should be standing for the teachers as well. This is one of the adab our teachers themselves have taught us. So those people who are students here, remember, stand for your teachers. Stand for your teachers, not because of them being a human being, not because of their nationality, not because of the clothing they wear or the outward appearance, because they carry the inheritance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They carry the inheritance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that deserves our respect in itself. So those people who are students here, when your teacher enters the classroom, stand for your teacher. Rasulullah said in a hadith, قُومُوا إِلَى سَيِّدِكُمْ. Stand for your sayyids. Stand for your elders and your leaders. Stand for your leaders. And this is talking about leaders who deserve respect. So those people who are elder than us, those people who have a higher maqam than us, we should stand up for them, our respect for them as well. So Rasulullah has given us beautiful advice in respect to the teacher as well. Rasulullah says in a hadith, and I'll include elders in this as well, otherwise I won't get the opportunity to speak about them separately. Rasulullah says in a hadith, Sayyidina Anas bin Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, one of those people who spent approximately 9 or 10 years in the khidmah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was in the khidmah of Rasulullah constantly, and he was a young child whilst he was in the khidmah of Rasulullah. He says himself that never was there a moment Rasulullah said to me, why do you do such a thing? And he never ever said to me, why do you not do such a thing? That's how beautiful the adab of Rasulullah was with just children as well. Never mind those people who were elders of society. And Rasulullah, he says that the only time Rasulullah rebuked me was once when I was eating, Rasulullah called me Ya Ghulam, oh boy. That's the furthest Rasulullah said something to him. Ya, oh boy, Ya Ghulam. Otherwise, Rasulullah adab with him was that he would say Ya Unais, oh Unais. And those people who know Arabic, they know that Unais is not his name, Anas is his name. But Rasulullah called him Unais because Unais in the Arabic language is what you call Ismu Tasghir, diminutive. A diminutive, one of the purposes of it is compassion. Diminutive means that you make something small. Okay. So for example, it could be literally a small qalam, qulaim, a small pen. It could be to debase someone. Rajul, a man, rojail, a small man. So you call someone a small man, like you have in English, is debasing a person, rojail. But one of the other purposes of Ismu Tasghir is for compassion. That when a person describes someone being small, what it implies is innocence. Children have innocence. Ya Unais, oh young Anas, "Oh small Anas." So Rasulullah adab was with Anas radiallahu ta'ala. The only time that he rebuked him was when he was eating with the people and Rasulullah saw that his manner of eating did not fulfill or befit his adab. So what he was doing is he was reaching for the other side of the plates. So Rasulullah said to him that, "Eat from what's close to you, ya ghulam." Okay. Teaching your adab, because adab is very, very important, and I'll speak about that when we come to the parent and the child, the relationship between the parent and the child. Rasulullah says in the hadith, "Ma akrama shabun shaykhan lisinnihi." There isn't any young person, any young man that honors the old man for his age. إِلَّا قَيَّضَ اللَّهُ لَهُ مِنْ مَنْ يُكْرِمُهُ عِنْدَ سِنِّهِ. Except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will appoint a similar person who, when that small child becomes old, who becomes old, another person will honor him as well. A young person will honor him. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most just. His justice is the best of justice. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if someone honors the elders, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make sure that there's someone at the end of their lives that will honor them as well. Okay. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq that we can honor our elders not just because of this reason, but because they deserve our honor as well. So these two categories were the people who are above us. So these people are above us and we know as a fact that they are above us. Let's look at those people who are below us and look at how we should be dealing in respect to them. So the first and foremost of those people are our children. Rasulullah says in the hadith, "Kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi." Each of you is a ra'i. Ra'i literally means a shepherd. But ra'i also means a person who overlooks, as a shepherd does. So each of you is one who overlooks others. And each one of you will be questioned about his ra'iyah, about his herd, about the people who is overlooking. So one of the people, or one of those categories that we're going to be questioned first and foremost is our children. They are those people who immediately come under our wing. They are those individuals who immediately, our word has an effect on those. And we see it when you speak to them, that, or at least the general impression is that when you speak to them, they ought to be listening to us first and foremost. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in regards to children, the relationship of a parent with a child. The first thing is that it's misunderstood, especially amongst parents, that they commonly say that it's the teacher's responsibility to teach adab to the child. This is a misrepresentation of the teacher's duty. It's not the teacher's duty primarily to teach adab to the child. It's the parent's duty to do that. The parents are the first school, especially the mother is the first school, the first madrasa of the child. If the child is taught at the first madrasa, then what's going to happen is that adab is a seed that should be sown immediately, because that is something that's going to sprout later on. If we sow a seed in grounds that are infertile, the fertility has been lost, then you're going to realize the seed cannot be sown. And we see it from our own children. If they're in the teens, when we start to give them time in the teens and we start to try to teach them respect in the teens, then we find it very, very difficult to do this. So the responsibility of teaching adab is onto the parent, because the parents are the first school. Rasulullah says in the hadith, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يَرْحَمْ صَغِيرَنَا وَيَعْرِفْ شَرَفَ كَبِيرَنَا. So in respect to our youngsters, the first thing is we should have compassion for them. So we shouldn't be harsh with them. Our first part of communication with them is compassion. Because if we can be compassionate with them, then there's no need to be harsh. Harshness comes after compassion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise, الرَّاحِمُونَ يَرْحَمُهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ إِرْحَمُوا مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يَرْحَمْكُمْ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ. That those who show mercy will be shown mercy by the All-Merciful One. So show mercy to those who are on the earth, and the one who's in the heavens will have mercy upon you. So this is called Hadith Rahmah. This is the first hadith that traditionally, people who study hadith, this is the first hadith that the isnad of the hadith is given to the student. And this is because the teacher is teaching the student that you have to be merciful with people. And Rasulullah didn't mention just the Muslim ummah. Okay? Rasulullah mentioned all those who are on the earth. All those who are on earth, whether the human beings or animals, whether the believers or disbelievers, whether they're obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are the first call, they deserve our respect. If our respect doesn't work for them, then there's other routes to take. But the first part is that we have to be merciful with those people and speak in a merciful manner. Again, the verse I recited in the beginning, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا, and say to the people, speak to the people a good word. So say good to people. And similarly, we realize on this point that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the task to Musa alayhi salam and Harun alayhi salam to speak with Pharaoh, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to them, speak to him with a gentle word. Can you imagine anyone who's going to be a bigger tyrant than Fir'aun? So there's no person who deserves our harsh words from us. If there's someone who's worse than Fir'aun, go ahead and speak harshly to them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to Musa alayhi salam, have a good word and speak leniently and speak gently with Fir'aun. Okay. Is there anyone who's worse than Fir'aun on this earth? Is there anyone who's better than Musa alayhi salam on this earth? Anyone who's better than Musa alayhi salam that we should say that this advice is for Musa alayhi salam, it's not for us, that we're better than Musa alayhi salam? We're not better than Musa alayhi salam. So the first way that we speak with people is that we speak gently with people. So Rasulullah said in a hadith that the one who is not merciful and compassionate to the one who's younger than us, and the one who doesn't recognize the nobility and the honor of the one who's elder than us is not from us. He's not from us. It's not befitting to be from the Ummah of Rasulullah in the outward sense and to be disobedient to the commands of Rasulullah. Rasulullah has been sent to first and foremost to perfect adab. Rasulullah said himself that وَعِثْتُ أَنْ أُكَمِّلَ تَعْدِيبَ النَّاسِ أو كما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, that I've been sent in order to perfect the character of people. And that's the Rasulullah said that I've been sent only to do this. Only here means that this is one of the duties that has been imposed upon me. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, again coming back to the children, what is our relationship with children? I mentioned teaching manners. Rasulullah said in the hadith, ما نحل والد ولدا من نحل أفضل من أدب حسن. The Rasulullah mentioned that there's no parent that can give a gift to a child better than good manners. There's nothing better than that. What we tend to do nowadays is that we start to load big gifts upon our children. We think that we're being great parents to our children. We give them, the games consoles, we give them bikes, we give them everything that they demand of us, and we think that we're being such good parents. But the thing that we don't give them is adab. Whereas the adab which Rasulullah has said that that's the greatest of gifts that we can give to our children. How can we fool ourselves thinking that we're giving worldly things to our children, and this thing that's gonna give them benefit throughout their lives, we're not giving that. So remember, the first thing we have to give to our children is adab, respect. Another thing, and the second thing, is that we have to teach them obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I say after adab because obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in the hadith, that when the child reaches the age of 7, then teach him to pray. When he reaches the age of 10, then chastise him for that. When he reaches the age of 7. Adab starts before that. Teaching adab to children is way before that. So adab is the first thing we need to teach to our children. Adab should be a sixth sense for our children. It should be a natural characteristic. And the second thing after that is obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. So as soon as they reach the age of 7, we should be teaching them to pray. And look, notice that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the parent should be teaching the child to pray. He didn't say the ustaz should be teaching the child to pray. He said the parent. Okay, because the parent in actual fact is the ustaz anyway. The parent is the ustaz. We have, again, like I mentioned, this misunderstanding that the parent does not have the duty of being a teacher to the child. The parent has this duty. It's one of the biggest duties of the child. This is what gives the rank of the parent to the parent. This is what gives the rank of the parent to the parent. One of the characteristics of being a parent is teaching the youngest and teaching the children. So remember that as parents, we have to be teachers to our children as well. Don't expect the ulama to teach this. If we fail in that, then the ulama are there as a secondary plan. Okay, plan B, the ulama are there. Okay, the ulama are always plan B anyway, aren't they? Okay. But the ulama are there, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Okay, so our children, the best thing we can give them is adab and then obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we fail in this, then we failed as being parents. If we can't even give this to them, then we haven't even fulfilled our right as parents. So our right as parents is that we give minimum these two things. And in respect to compassion, I mentioned briefly about compassion. Once a Bedouin came to Rasulullah and Rasulullah was kissing Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. And he was picking them up and he was carrying them and he was throwing them into the air and being compassionate and being kind and being loving to children as parents and grandparents are. The man said to Rasulullah, do you kiss your grandchildren? Rasulullah said, of course I kiss my grandchildren. Do you kiss your grandchildren? He said, I have 10 grandchildren. Wallahi, I've never ever even kissed one of them. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him that it's not my fault that you don't have any compassion in you. So one of the things of compassion, being compassionate, is that the first thing of being compassionate is we have to be compassionate to our youngest. And the first of those is our children, our grandchildren. Sometimes we become macho and we become manly and we think that this is, is not of being manliness, that we can't show kindness to our children. Okay. Even more so, we have that problem with showing kindness to our wives. So if someone has to go home and the wife wants them to go home, I think very rarely you'll hear a person mention, I need to go home, my wife wants me home at this moment in time. Probably he'll some other kind of excuse. So that's another thing, that manliness has its maqam and its place, but you have to respect these relationships. So the topic is relationships, and these are the things that we have to abide by. Moving on quickly, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, going on to the spouses as well. Okay, I've got very brief time. I'll try to cover as much as possible. May Allah subhanahu give me tawfiq with that. Allah subhanahu mentions in the Quran in regards to the spouses. وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, that live with them and interact with them in a good manner. Allah subhanahu is speaking about spouses here. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned in the hadith, خِيَارَكُمْ لِنِسَائِهِمْ, that the best of you is the best of you to his wives. The best of you is the best of you to his wife. And many of the ulama have wisely said that if your wife says you're a wali, you're a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If your wife says you're a wali, you're a wali. If other people say you're a wali, disregard that. Because the person who spends their entire life or the majority of their life with you in privacy, in public, is your wife. If you can show your wife obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you are truly obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So your wife, like they say, a Muslim is a mirror to another Muslim, your wife in privacy is a mirror for you as well. So if you want to realize what kind of a person you are, you should ask your wife honestly what she thinks of you. Okay. So, and it's true, really, there's no exaggeration in that. If your wife says you're a good person, honestly, you're a good person. It's impossible for your wife to say you're a good person, you're not a good person, in all honesty. The Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said regarding wives, many people amongst us is married, many of us is maybe not married, so advice to those who are not married. The Rasulullah advised that there's 4 things that women are married for. People marry women for 4 things. Okay. So just to cut to the chase, if you're going to marry a woman, marry her for her deen. Okay. Many people who are already married will know this. That there's a lot of people who went through this experience, that we were thinking, we're going to get married, and probably a lot of us thought that the deen doesn't matter. Once we get married, the deen will come after that. A lot of people here probably are familiar with this notion. Rasulullah gave us golden advice here. Rasulullah mentioned in the hadith that a woman is like a curved rib. A woman is like a curved rib. If you try to straighten it out, you're going to break it. Meaning that men and women are different. Men have the characteristics, women have the characteristics. Okay? If you're going to force your ideal upon your wife, you're going to break her. And break here, Rasulullah mentioned, it means talaq, breakdown of the marriage. So remember, if you want your spouse to be a good spouse, decide that before your marriage. Those people who are not married here, make sure that's your number 1 priority, because the beauty is going to fade. Ask people who are married now. The beauty fades. Okay? If they're beautiful, it's going to fade to averageness or non-beauty at all. Okay? You're going to get, maybe some people will get sick of it. May Allah protect us of that. If they're not beautiful, we'll grow to love them. We'll grow to love them for other things. The Rasulullah mentioned the hadith that your women, you will dislike them for certain things and you like them for certain things. So look at the things that you like them for. So if they're not beautiful, we'll begin to like them for their personalities. And that's even more important. We'll understand that people who are married, they understand that already. And when you come to wealth, people will never be sick of wealth. Wealth is one of the things Rasulullah mentioned, that nothing fills the mouth of Banu Adam. Nothing fills the mouth of the children of Adam except the dust of his grave. So the wealth is we're never going to be happy with wealth. Marry a rich woman, you're going to wish for more wealth after that as well. If you want to marry for rank and honor, you're going to get used to it again. Okay? So if a person wants the best of this dunya and akhirah, then he should marry a woman who has deen and a woman who is pious. Rasulullah mentions in a hadith, خَيْرُ مَتَاعِ الدُّنْيَا الْمَرْأَةُ الصَّالِحَةُ, the best of things in this dunya is a pious woman. And that is the same thing that Rasulullah mentioned in the hadith. So a wife is very, very important. Not just because she's your life partner, but also because she's going to be the primary person who's going to raise your children. So you're going to leave her with the responsibility of your children. So do you trust her enough? You're going to have to trust her anyway. But are you happy enough for your children to be raised in that environment? Okay. So if you're not happy, then you have to make sure that there's some change in that. And the first portal of change is marrying a good woman. The second portal of change is to try to engage with the wife and to cause that change to occur. Now, many people wish that the wives are like the Sahabiyat. They wish that the wives are like the companions of the wives of the companions. They wish that the wives are like the wives of the ulama. And they wish that the wives are just absolutely perfect. But one question that we should be asking ourselves, are we like the companions? Are we like the ulama? Are we like the pious? Once we do that, our wives will become the same as well, inshaAllah ta'ala. So if you want good and pious wives, we have to rectify ourselves first. A lot of the times the problems arise in families, and the domestic problems arise because we try to force things upon people in our homes which we don't even do ourselves. Okay? And which we don't even keep up to the right standard ourselves. So if you want to see the positive change with the people around us, the change has to start with us. So we have to be that example. The best way that we can be an example to others is not by words merely. We have to be an example by action. In the same light, talking about the family unit, Rasulullah mentioned about the relatives as well. لا يدخل الجنة قاطع. The person who cuts off his relatives, he won't enter paradise. That's sufficient enough as a warning from Rasulullah. Now there's many people amongst us that we have bad relationship with our relatives. We have a negative relationship with our relatives, and most of the time it's upon such petty things that we look, it might even be 20 years or 10 years that we had this bad relationship. And our elders will know this better than our younger ones. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us tawfiq that we can look over these petty disputes. So having good relationship with our relatives is very important as well. Relationship with our friends. Rasulullah mentioned very importantly, الرجل على دين خليله, that a man is upon the religion and the man is upon the lifestyle and the manner and the mannerism and the characteristics of his intimate friend. Whoever you're intimate with and you hang about with, that's the person you're going to be reflecting. You automatically do it, whether you like it or you don't like it, whether you realize it or you don't realize it. Whatever kind of company you have, you're going to reflect that company. So if you want to better ourselves as human beings, better ourselves as Muslims, we have to make sure our company is positive. And the best company we can have, as we realize in the Itikaaf especially, is by being around those people who are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By being around those people who recognize the importance of our deen. By being amongst those people who recognize the importance of embodying the character and the teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we have to look at this. فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدُكُمْ مَنْ يُخَالِلْ. So let one of you and each of you look at the one who he keeps intimate companionship with. So if you were to better ourselves, the only way we can better ourselves in that is by looking at the people that we keep intimate companionship with. Okay. So I've only got a few minutes, so I'm just going to summarize what I've said. Okay. I've spoken about a few categories of people, but I want to speak about one category which overrides all of these categories. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I mentioned 3 categories prior. I mentioned the category of people who are above us or we see as being above us, people who deserve our reverence. We have people who we have mutual respect for, people who have mutual respect for. Generally, humanity at large, and people, for example, our friends, our spouses, our brothers, our sisters, etc. Then we have people who we have compassion for, people who are generally below us. Remember these 3 categories: people who we have reverence for, people who we have mutual respect for, people who we have compassion for. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in a hadith, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من ولده ووالده والناس أجمعين. Rasulullah mentioned in the hadith that none of you truly believes until I become more beloved to him than 3 categories of people: his children, his parents, and mankind in its entirety. Okay. Why did I mention those 3 prior categories? And I was very careful with my words in respect to reverence, mutual respect, or to be kind to one another because of favors, and having compassion. Why did I mention those? Because Rasulullah, first of all, Rasulullah has said that utitu bi jawami al-kalim. I have been given jawami al-kalim, that short words that have deep meanings. And literally you could take a hadith of Rasulullah and you can live your whole life by it. Just take a hadith of Rasulullah and live your whole life by it. Remind yourself of that one hadith every day, and you realize that you can benefit from it every single day. So looking at these three categories Rasulullah mentioned here. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من ولده. Until I become more beloved to him than his children. What kind of relationship or what kind of category do the children form? Children have innocence. They have our compassion. So what it means is that none of you truly believes until Rasulullah becomes more beloved to him even more than his children. What it means is that if we have compassion for anyone, then our compassion should be for Rasulullah first and foremost. Why do we have compassion for children? First and foremost, we have compassion for children because of the innocence. Who is the most innocent of beings? Who is the most free of sin? Who has no sin? Who is the purest of beings? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So look, our children, we have compassion for our children primarily because of the innocence. What do we see as soon as we see young people? We see the innocence. To such an extent that if there was some harm coming to a child, even if it's not even our child. Imagine a child is crossing a road, you're just beside him and he's about to get run over. You will risk your life for his life. Okay. Why do you do that? Because that's an innocent soul. You risk your life over his life. And this was the compassion that the Sahaba had for Rasulullah. Look at Sayyidina Talha radiallahu ta'ala, who in the battle, he took the wounds from arrows. He became a dartboard for arrows in front of Rasulullah. Automatically, without even thinking about that. That is the same example as a person would risk themselves before a car over the child. That the Sahaba would risk themselves physically and come in the way of Rasulullah when arrows are coming towards Rasulullah and wouldn't allow that to touch Rasulullah automatically without any thought at all. So that was because of the compassionate nature of Rasulullah, the innocent nature of Rasulullah. The second category was وَوَالِدِهِمْ and وَوَالِدِهِ and his parents. That none of you truly believes until he loves me more than his parents. What is the category of the parents for? That's the reverence of those who are above us. Of all of the people who can be above us, who deserve our reverence the most? Our parents. And if you look at our parents, why do we revere them? As I mentioned, because they are those people who have brought us into this dunya, into this finite and limited dunya. Who is the person who's going to give us the hayatul ukhrawi? Who's going to give us the infinite life in the akhirah? Who is the one who is deserving the most of that respect? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is the one. The parents are those who gave us life, physical life. Rasulullah gave us iman. Had it not been for iman, our lives are even worthless. Never mind our earthly lives, our lives in the akhirah. So we owe our life in the akhirah, our infinite life to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just like we owe our finite life to our parents. So that's the category Rasulullah has mentioned by parents. And the last category Rasulullah has mentioned, وَالنَّاسِ أَجْمَعِينَ and mankind in its generality, mankind in its entirety. Why do we have respect and honor and love for people generally? So if you think generally speaking, why do we have love for people? Because generally, the first way that we have love for people is because they cast some kind of favor upon us. Okay? It might be in the form of respect. They respect us, we respect them back. They have cast some kind of favor upon us. They've maybe saved our lives. Automatically we become indebted to them. They have saved our limbs. They have saved us from a difficult situation. Automatically we become indebted to them, whether we like it or not. Like the ulama have said, al-insanu abdul ihsan, that the insan, the person, the human being, is a slave to ihsan, a slave to good dealing. So anyone who deals well with you, automatically you become enslaved to him. You become enslaved to his favor. So if you look at mankind in general, generally speaking, if you have love for one another, it's mostly people who have had cast favor upon us. So who has cast the biggest of favors upon us? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Again, how beautiful are the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So again, I remind you of the biggest and greatest of relationships we can have. The relationship with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that overshadows every kind of relationship. So just to remind ourselves again, our relationship with our parents. If there's anything wrong with our relationship with our parents, we need to rectify our relationship with our parents. If there's anything wrong with our relationship with our teachers, and this is very, very common in this age, and it's very, very unfortunate. The relationship you would see with students and teachers in the first generations was unparalleled. You would see the students, they would stand and they sit at the door of the teacher, even in the lateness of the night, waiting for the teacher to come out and then to start the lessons. And the Sahaba would do the same thing for Rasulullah as well. Because the Rasulullah again was the ultimate teacher. So if we don't have the adab with our teachers, then we have to rectify that. We have to rectify that. Our adab with our teachers should be utmost and it should be the highest level. And our adab, our relationship with our children, it should be a relationship of compassion. And remember our duties with our children. Our relationship with our spouses. Okay? Let's reflect on our relationship with our spouses. This is one of the biggest problems, domestic problems that we have in our household. And it's because we don't actually consider the possibility of us being wrong. So let's rectify our relationship with our spouses. Let's rectify ourselves in order to rectify them. And lastly and not least, the biggest of relationships, our relationship with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Our relationship with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made him a wasila in order for us to reach him. So if you want to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the only way and the best of ways we can draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by connecting ourselves to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the tawfiq, especially in these last few days of this blessed month of Ramadan, that we can rectify our broken relationships, that we can establish good relationship with all of the people around us, even people who have no relationship with us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us tawfiq in this month that we can create, if we don't have this relationship with Rasulullah at all, to create this relationship with Rasulullah and make this the relationship that overrides every other relationship. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. All that I have said good is from myself. If I said anything wrong, all that I said is good is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If there's anything wrong I've said is from myself. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me the tawfiq that I can rectify myself. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me the tawfiq that if there's any ignorance in my knowledge that I can rectify that. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.